Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to the vlog. Doing the first intro for my new car. That's right. Found this up at a dealership in Leesburg about a month ago. It's a 2020 Honda Civic Touring Edition. Man, this thing is nice. Power everything, leather seats, sunroof, moonroof, paddle shifting, a bunch of features I'm not going to use. But I figure I'm driving over 600 miles a week for work now, so might as well do it in a little bit of style and a little bit of comfort. It is a Friday afternoon. We're here up at Orange City to mix it up in the 1-2. Gonna see if they'll start the list for the 1-3 as well. If you enjoy, like and subscribe. Let's get to it. It will not take us long to get involved tonight. Early on in the first orbit, there's a button straddle. We're in the small blind and we look down at ace 10 offsuit. I start by bumping it up to $15. The cutoff is the only caller, so we're off to a flop out of position, heads up. The flop is 6, 7, 8, 2 diamonds, so I flop myself a gut shot with 2 overs here. I check, and my opponent checks behind, so we're off to the turn. The turn is the queen of diamonds, and I'll represent the diamonds here. I bet out for $23, and my opponent folds, so we win our first pot. I think it's important to scoop some of those first pots early. Really helps build the confidence. We're in the small blind this time when we look down at king 7 of clubs. We see a call from +1 before it folds all the way around to the cutoff, who also makes the call. Then the button calls. With the action on me, I decide to go ahead and call here, and the big blind checks. We're off to a flop 5 ways. The flop is king 7 deuce rainbow, so I flop top 2 here. It checks around to +1, who bets out $10. We see a call from the cutoff before the action gets back to me, and I decide to go ahead and just call and make my move on the turn. We're off to a turn 3 ways. The turn is an 8 of hearts. This board's getting a little bit more connected now, but I decide to go ahead and check once again, looking to make a check raise. It checks around to +1, who ends up taking the bait and betting $20. The cutoff folds, and with it back on me, I check raise to $60. My opponent snap calls. I may have to tread a little cautiously here on the river. The river is a 9 of hearts, and it completes backdoor hearts, and a myriad of straight draws have come in now. At this point, I don't really know where I'm at in this hand, so I check. My opponent checks behind. I announce 2 pair, and he says it's good, and we win again. We're in the cutoff this time, and we look down at ace 5 offsuit. We see calls from +1 in the low jack before the hijack bumps it up to $7. Being unsuited, I opt to just call here as opposed to raising. It folds back to +1, who also makes the call, as does the low jack. We're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is ace 3, 6 with 2 diamonds, so I've got top pair and a backdoor straight draw. It checks to me, and I put a bet out of $14. The hijack is the only caller, so we're off to the turn, heads up. The turn is a king of hearts, and once again my opponent checks to me, so I fire for $25 this time. Looking back, I think this is actually kind of a bad bet. There's a lot of aces out there that beat me, and considering the turn didn't complete any flush draws, I probably either need to bet really big here or just check. My opponent calls, so we're off to the river, heads up. The river is a 7 of clubs. The diamonds miss, but if this guy has an ace, he's probably not folding, so I just check back. My opponent chose ace jack of diamonds, so there was no way he was getting away from this hand. He wins this one. We're in the cutoff once again, and we look down at king queen of diamonds. There are 3 callers before the action gets to me, and I bump it up to $15. We see a call from the small blind, and all 3 limpers call as well, so a raise that gets no respect has us going 5 ways to a flop. The flop is 9 jack 7 rainbow, so I flopped a gut shot straight draw as well as a backdoor flush draw with my 2 overs. The action surprisingly checks all the way through on this street, so we'll see a free turn. The turn is the money card. It's the 10 of diamonds, completing my straight and bringing in my flush draw. Under the gun fires off for $25 here. It folds to me, and unlike the king 7 hand, I want to start putting pressure on now, so I bump it up to $70. It folds all the way back around to under the gun, who shoves for 91 total. Obviously, I snap it here. The river is a 6 of spades.
King queen against me. King queen against me. King queen nuts.
You got nuts.
Oh!
So he must have had an 8 here. Regardless, we're winning this one. We're in the big blind this time, and we look down at king 3 of hearts. There are 3 callers before the action gets to me, and I check. We're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is king jack 7 with 1 heart, so I flop top pair here and a backdoor flush draw, but I've got a really weak kicker. It checks to me, and I decide to go ahead and test the waters, and I fire out for $10. The early position player folds, but the other 2 call, so we're off to a turn 3 ways. The turn is a 9 of hearts, so it's helping me complete my flush draw here. Once again, it checks to me and I fire off this time for $25. The button makes the call. When the action gets back to the small blind, he check raises to $80. Back on me, and I don't love this spot. While I did pick up the heart draw, there are some straight draws that have completed here. I want to call this one off, and I don't think there could be any better card on the turn for me to continue, but any non-heart river, and I'm probably dead in the water, so I decide to go ahead and fold here. The button calls, so we'll see a river. The river is a 10 of diamonds, so the hearts don't get there. The small blind checks before the button ends up shoving, and the small blind snaps him off. The small blind turns over 10-8 for the straight, but the button rivered the higher straight with queen 6. So looking back and being results oriented, it was actually a great fold, but I'm not sure I actually played the hand very well. There is an under the gun straddle. We're in the small blind and we peel back 2 aces. We see a raise from +1 to $10 before +2 makes the call. It folds around to me and I 3-bet to $35. It folds back around to +1, who then jams for $61 total. The action is back on +2. She's an older Asian woman. She goes by the name Miss Sue. She only has about $100 total in her stack. She's only going to come back over the top and shove if she has kings or aces, and obviously I have great card removal to that. After some thinking, she actually ends up making the call. So when the action's on me, I reshove for an additional $40. Miss Sue ends up calling, so we're off to a flop 3 ways with 2 all in. The flop is 10-8-6 with 2 spades, so pretty good flop for me. The turn is a queen of spades. +2 emphatically flips over pocket queens. But I did pick up a flush draw here, so I'm still live. The river is a king of clubs, so we lose this one, but we were actually in a lot of trouble early as under the gun flips over pocket 10. So I was really only ahead in this hand pre-flop. Hands like this you can't get too mad about. I did everything I was supposed to do right. The cards just didn't work out in my favor. I put the phone away for about 20 minutes as I got a massage while I was there, and a couple things happened. In one hand, I ended up 3-betting pre-flop in the small blind with 9-10 of diamonds, and my opponent came back over the top and shoved for $90 total. I ended up having to make the call, and I ran into kings there, so I lost that one. There was another hand where I button straddled with Jack 9 and I flopped 2 pair. We got it all in on the flop and it held, so I have about $175 in front of me. I top up to $200. We're in the hijack when once again we look down at king 7 of clubs. There are 2 limpers before the action gets to me, and I decide to go ahead and limp as well. When the action's on the button, he raises to $15. 2 players make the call, and so I feel like I'm getting a pretty good price, so I call as well. We're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is 3-5-10 with 2 clubs, so I flop myself a flush draw here. It checks to the big blind, who shoves for $70 total. It folds back to me, and I'm not crazy about this spot, but the board does favor my range a lot more than his, so he's probably on top pair or an over pair here, and I'm definitely very live with the flush draw, so I end up making the call. The turn is a 3, and the river is a 10. My opponent shows ace 10, and I just can't seem to win a coin flip today. A seat opened up where a buddy of mine and a vlog regular, Anthony, is sitting. There's also some other people who have been on the vlog before, like Craig from episode 20, The Collapse. So I take that seat and I add on for an additional $100. We're in the game for $400 now. I also got the chance to meet Anthony's wife, Ari, who was super sweet and apparently a fan of the channel. She, along with Anthony and their daughter, like to watch my video, so a big shout out to all 3 of them. I've played for about an hour at my new table, and I've just kind of been blinding away and then topping back up, so there's really not a whole lot to report. I'll show you in this hand. We're in the low jack, and we look down at a vlog favorite, Jack 8 of clubs. There is 1 call before the action gets to me, and I bump it up to $12. We see calls from the small blind and under the gun, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is Jack Deuce 5 with 2 spades, so I've got top pair here. It checks to me, and I put out a c-bet of $25. The small blind is the only caller, so we're off to a turn. The turn is a queen of spades, and it brings in the flush. My opponent checks to me, and I decide to go ahead and slow down here and check behind for pot control. The river is a 3 of clubs, and once again my opponent checks, and I just feel I'm only getting called by better, so I opt to check here as well. He shows queen jack for 2 pair, and he wins this one. While I was sitting there, I glanced over to my left at the 2-5 table, and I saw Kyle Fischl. I have learned a ton from watching Kyle's videos. So I went over and I introduced myself, and I asked if he'd speak to me on camera for a minute.
100% expecting him to say no, he actually said yes.
Well, this is pretty exciting. I'm sitting there playing 1-2 and I look over to my left and I see the Orange City legend, Kyle Fischl, playing cards. If you are living under a rock and haven't checked out Kyle's page, it's fantastic. He doesn't mess around with the drone shots. It's straight poker, and Kyle understands math at a way different level than I understand math. Kyle, the World Series is coming up here in a couple of months. You gonna go out and play some events?
Definitely. I like to play like everything that's like 600, 800 and below. Like 1K is a little too heavy for me, but
Sure.
yeah, I definitely want to play a few events there.
Well, Kyle, you keep pumping out your content. If you haven't seen Kyle's page somehow, I'll post a link in the description below. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thanks again, Kyle. I appreciate you taking time out to speak to me and the viewers on my channel. In the final hand of the night, we're in the low jack and we look down at 7-8 offsuit. It folds to me and I decided to just limp here as I'm not really running all that well. We see the hijack, the cutoff, and the button also limp, and then the big blind check, so we're off to a flop multi-way here. The flop is 3-9-10 with 2 spades, so I'm open-ended here. The big blind bets out for $7. Being open-ended, I think the correct play here is a raise to apply max pressure, but in the moment I elect to call. The problem with calling is you're keeping it cheap for everybody else to stay in the hand, which 2 players do, so we're off to a turn 4 ways. The turn is a 7 of clubs, so I've improved to a pair, though Jack 8 just got there. This time, however, the action checks all the way around, so we're off to the river. The river is an 8 of hearts, so I've got 2 pair now, but there's a 4-liner on the board. It checks to the hijack, who bets out for $13. Then the cutoff raises to $59. Back on me, and there's no way I can be good here, so I have to let this one go. The hijack calls, and they both ended up having a jack to chop. At this point, I've been playing for about 5 hours total, and it's all really fallen apart since my aces got cracked. I've had some decent pre-flop hands, but I'm either entirely whiffing on flops or I'm just getting flat out outplayed. I hung in there for a bit, but it didn't seem like the cards were going to turn back in my favor, so I racked up and I called it a night.
So wrapping that session up, obviously not the way I wanted it to turn out. It was a great first hour and a half, and then man, when I had my aces cracked, the wheels fell off. And I mean, there was some bad play there, but I couldn't win a coin flip. I went, I think 0 for 3 or 0 for 4 on coin flips tonight. I couldn't connect much on flops. It was pretty brutal, but you know, I got to play with some fans of the channel, which is always fun. And you know, I got to meet Kyle Fischl, and he's making an appearance on the vlog. And while I know that does nothing for him, maybe it'll do something for me. So we booked a $400 loss tonight. Not the best night we've ever had. If you enjoy, like and subscribe. See you next time.
If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more poker content. And you can follow me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker.